Welcome to our deep dive, into the world of CRISPR. It's really more than just a hot topic in science. It's a potential game changer, I think, for humanity, and we're going to explore, its potential today. And yes, we will face, those ethically complex questions, that come with, a technology this powerful,
Yeah,
especially its impact, on human nature itself.
that's right. It's interesting you bring up the impact on human nature.
Yeah,
That gets to the heart of why CRISPR is so fascinating. It allows us to modify DNA with this incredible precision,
right.
and that has implications for everything from treating diseases to, as you say, potentially altering
Yeah.
what it means to be human.
So for our listener, let's break down, why CRISPR is such a leap forward. We've had gene editing tools before, right? What makes this more different?
Well, it's the precision and versatility that really sets CRISPR apart. Older methods were kind of like using a hammer and chisel to sculpt.
I see.
You can make changes, but they are crude.
Yeah.
CRISPR is more like using a 3D printer.
Okay.
At the molecular level, we can target specific genes with incredible accuracy, and we can do more than just cut and paste.
Wow.
We can swap letters in the genetic code, and certain new sequences even activate or silence specific genes.
Okay, so that's the how. What about the wow? Give us a real world example of CRISPR in action that really shows its potential.
Well, imagine a child born with sickle cell anemia, a debilitating genetic disease.
Right.
With CRISPR, we can potentially take their own blood stem cells, correct the faulty gene, and reintroduce those corrected cells back into their body.
Okay.
This could potentially cure them, not just manage the symptoms.
That's incredible. And I read that scientists are even using CRISPR to develop disease-resistant crops like wheat that's immune to a devastating fungal disease called wheat rust.
Yeah,
Talk about impact that could protect the food supply for millions of people.
exactly. And it's not just about treating existing problems. CRISPR could allow us to engineer crops that are more nutritious, require less water, or can thrive in harsher environments.
Wow.
We're talking about potentially revolutionizing agriculture and addressing global challenges like hunger and climate change.
Okay, so we've established that CRISPR has mind-blowing potential, but with this kind of power comes ethical concerns, right? It's not all sunshine and roses. Where do those ethical lines start to blur for you?
Well, one of the biggest ethical dilemmas is the potential for human enhancement. If we can use CRISPR to correct disease-causing genes, what's stopping us from using it to enhance desirable traits like intelligence, athleticism, or physical appearance?
That's where the designer baby conversation comes in. Is that something we should even be considering? I mean, it feels like we're stepping into a science fiction movie.
It might feel like science fiction, but it's a debate we need to have now. If we can select for specific traits in embryos, are we essentially creating a world where parents can design their children?
And is that even something we have the right to do? Where do we draw the line between preventing disease and playing God?
It's a complex question. One argument is that if we have the technology to alleviate suffering and improve human well-being, we have a moral obligation to use it. But on the other hand, critics argue that manipulating the human germline, the genes passed down to future generations, could have unintended consequences that we can't even foresee.
On the one hand, there's the potential to eradicate diseases that have plagued humanity for centuries. On the other, we're walking into uncharted territory where we could be altering something fundamental about what it means to be human. Tough call. What do you think, listener, is the promise worth the risk?
It's not a question with an easy answer, but to really understand the implications of CRISPR, we need to take a closer look at some of these thorny issues, and that's where our deep dive continues.
We were just talking about how CRISPR could be used to enhance, human traits.
Right.
And that raises the question of genetic inequality.
Uh-huh.
If we're not careful, this technology could end up widening the gap between the haves and we have-nots, right?
Yeah, it's a legitimate concern. Imagine a scenario where wealthy parents can afford to use CRISPR to enhance their children's cognitive abilities or physical attributes.
Right.
It could create a society where privilege is literally encoded in your genes.
That sounds like something out of a dystopian novel where you have, a genetically enhanced elite and
Yeah,
everyone else is left behind.
it's a scenario we need to consider seriously. We already see disparities in access to healthcare and education.
Right.
Imagine adding genetic enhancement to the mix.
Oh, wow.
It could exacerbate existing inequalities and create new forms of discrimination.
That's a sobering thought. And it's not just about the societal implications. There's also the question of unintended consequences at the individual level.
Right.
We're still unraveling the complexities of the human genome.
Yeah.
Tweaking one gene could have unforeseen ripple effects on others.
Precisely, we need to remember that genes don't operate in isolation. They interact in complex networks, and we don't fully understand, all the intricacies.
Right.
A seemingly beneficial edit could inadvertently disrupt those networks and lead to unforeseen health problems.
It's like we're playing a high-stakes game of Jenga with the human genome.
Yeah,
One wrong move, and the whole thing could come crashing down, and those unintended consequences could be passed down to future generations, right?
right.
That's where germline editing gets really ethically tricky.
You're absolutely right. Germline editing, which involves modifying the DNA of embryos' eggs or sperm, is particularly controversial because those changes would be inherited by all subsequent offspring.
Right.
We're not just talking about altering an individual's genes, but potentially altering the human species itself.
So it's not just about individual rights and choices anymore. We're talking about a responsibility to future generations who
Exactly.
have no say in these decisions.
And that raises profound philosophical questions about what it means to be human and whether we have the right to make such far-reaching decisions that could affect the evolutionary trajectory of our species.
It's a heavy responsibility, and historically, we haven't always been great at predicting the long-term consequences of our, technological innovations.
Yeah.
Think about the invention of plastic, initially hailed as a miracle material,
Right.
but now recognized as a major environmental pollutant.
Uh-huh.
Do we risk repeating that same mistake with CRISPR?
That's why it's crucial that we proceed with extreme caution and have open and honest conversations about the potential risks and benefits of germline editing. We need to involve not just scientists and policymakers, but also ethicists, social scientists, and the public at large.
It's about having a global conversation, right?
Yeah,
This isn't just an issue for one country or one culture to decide. The implications of germline editing are universal.
absolutely. We need international collaboration and consensus on ethical guidelines for germline editing. If one country decides to move forward with this technology without considering the global implications, it could have far-reaching consequences for all of humanity.
It seems like regulation is key here.
Yeah.
We need clear rules of the road to ensure that CRISPR research and applications are conducted responsibly and ethically.
Regulation is essential, but it's not a simple solution. It needs to be carefully crafted to strike a balance between fostering scientific innovation and protecting against potential risks. We don't want to stifle research that could lead to life-saving treatments, but we also need to guard against potential misuse.
It's a delicate balancing act. Too much regulation, and we risk stifling progress. Too little, and we open a door to potentially dangerous applications.
And who gets to decide where that line is drawn?
Right.
Who decides what constitutes a responsible use of CRISPR?
Yeah.
Those are difficult questions, and there are no easy answers. It's going to require careful consideration, open dialogue, and a willingness to listen to different perspectives.
It sounds like we need a new kind of ethical framework, one that can keep pace with the rapid advancements in biotechnology. Traditional ethical principles might not be sufficient to address the unique challenges posed by CRISPR.
You're right, we're in uncharted territory here.
Yeah.
This technology has the potential to reshape not just medicine and agriculture, but also our understanding of what it means to be human.
It's exciting and it's daunting. We have this incredible tool at our disposal, but we're still figuring out how to use it responsibly. What do you think, listener? If you were in charge of regulating CRISPR, where would you draw the line? It's a question worth pondering as we continue to grapple with the implications of this revolutionary technology. We've been talking about the need for regulation and global consensus, when it comes to CRISPR, but even with the best intentions,
Right.
predicting the full impact of a technology this powerful is almost impossible. We're venturing into the unknown here.
It's true, and that uncertainty is part of what makes this technology so compelling,
Yeah.
but also so unsettling.
Right.
We have to acknowledge that there will always be unknowns,
Right.
unintended consequences that we can't anticipate.
Like a ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
You make one change and it sets off a chain reaction with unforeseen outcomes. How do we even begin to approach that level of complexity?
One approach is to think about CRISPR not just as a tool, but as a mirror.
Okay.
It reflects back our values, our aspirations, and our fears. The way we choose to use this technology will reveal a lot about who we are as a species.
I like that CRISPR as a mirror, it forces us to confront some really fundamental questions about human nature,
Yeah,
our place in the world, and our responsibility to future generations. It's almost philosophical, isn't it?
absolutely. If we have the power to alter the human genome,
Right,
what does that say about our definition of human?
right.
Are we opening Pandora's box, as some critics argue, or are we simply taking the next step in our long evolutionary journey?
I read a quote from a bioethicist that really stuck with me. With CRISPR, we are no longer just the products of evolution.
Yeah.
but we are becoming the architects of it. That's a pretty profound statement.
It is, and it highlights the immense responsibility we now bear.
Right.
We're not just tinkering with genes, we're potentially shaping the future of our species.
Wow.
It's both exhilarating and terrifying.
And it's not just about the big philosophical questions. There are very real practical concerns about access and equity.
Right.
Will this technology be available to everyone, or will it only benefit the wealthy and privileged?
That's a crucial consideration. We need to ensure that CRISPR doesn't exacerbate existing inequalities. It's not enough to simply develop these technologies.
Right.
We need to ensure equitable access and distribution.
We need to be mindful of the potential for a genetic divide where those with access to CRISPR enhancements have a significant advantage over those who don't.
Exactly, and that goes back to the need for robust regulation and international cooperation.
Yeah.
This technology has global implications, and we need a global framework to guide its development and use.
It's clear that CRISPR is a powerful tool with the potential to both heal and harm. The choices we make today will have a ripple effect for generations to come.
And those choices require careful consideration, open dialogue, and a willingness to engage with diverse perspectives. We need to proceed with humility, recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
Well, listener, we've reached the end of our deep dive into CRISPR. We've explored its possibilities, its perils, and its profound implications for humanity.
Hopefully, this conversation has provided you with a deeper understanding of the complexities of this revolutionary technology and the ethical challenges it presents.
As one of our sources aptly put it, CRISPR is a mirror reflecting our hopes and fears for the future.
That's good.
What we see in that reflection will depend on the choices we make individually and collectively.
So as you continue to explore this topic, we encourage you to ask yourself,
Yeah.
what kind of future do we want to create with CRISPR? And what role will you play in shaping that future?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going. The future is in our hands.